He's not coming to life. Why is he not? Why does he do that?
Why does it sound like he's saying to take a shit?
I didn't know Mr. Snowman was about that line. And he just beeps at the elf.
He's like, okay, dog, you got the next line.
And there's nothing he doesn't even represent. Oh my gosh. Well, I guess that's our introduction because we don't know what's going on with them. They got a mind of their own. Watch, they're going to start beeping within the next 5 minutes. I don't know if it's indicating like, come on, press me again.
Welcome back to the podcast, guys. I am Christina. This is my brother Spencer. I made this podcast to just talk about really anything, everything, just to kind of help show that communication is key in this life. If you have any suggestions of things you'd like us to talk about, or if there's something that we've already talked about, that you would like us to go more in depth into, you can always let us know on our social media, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can let us know in the comments below. And we are now on Spotify.
Yeah.
All of the stuff is going to be linked for you guys, so that way you have access to it.
Yeah. Y'all can listen to us on all the different platforms now. And if you would like to, we can have them sing you a song as well too.
They'll probably start singing at some point during the podcast.
It's gonna be like the Christmas dolls that like come to life.
This is actually a horror podcast. They just come to life.
Do you just see that they start grabbing out their battle axes and he's coming after them?
I actually joked. I was like, we should just throw them across the room. We're done with them. And he was like, no, they're gonna come after us.
Oh, indeed, they would. I feel like these little devices are kind of like that. They're weird because this reminds me of a friend that had a Bluetooth speaker that is literally ran off of charge, but for some reason it wouldn't charge, but it would charge with the sun. It was not built like that. We're talking like Goodwill status speaker was somehow getting solar power. And he would keep it charged because he would keep it at the front of his vehicle and the sun would just beam on it and somehow it got lit up that way.
But it had like a charging port to charge it.
Yes, and we would charge it and like you could have it sitting there overnight and you could use it in the morning. Did not work. But as soon as you put it in the sun, it would stay like that. You wouldn't hear the beeping noise like low battery. Or if you did, you'd only hear it once, and then it would just still keep playing. You could use it the rest of the day, as long as it was in the sun.
He needed sun power.
It was just the weirdest thing. I do not know why the device worked like that, but it did. So that's what this reminds me of. They just randomly talk on their own.
I mean, they're not running off of solar power. Maybe the lights are bright enough for them.
Oh, yes.
They wanted to be in the spotlight.
Oh, yeah. Well, were they like in a box before they were brought here? Yeah, okay. Yeah, they needed to get out.
I mean, they also had like, crusty batteries, so
Dude,
that might be what's affecting them.
Actually, that's probably the case because there was a lot of corrosion on them. Like, it was bad. I don't know where they were sitting before, but...
They must have been sitting for so long and nobody used them.
Yeah. Well... This will be our Christmas edition. Well, pre-Christmas edition. I think we have one more in between.
Yeah.
For Christmas. So, yeah, we got it decorated. Thankfully, you did that today because, that was... I got things to do. This podcast is also getting recorded at a different point as well, too, than what we will have regularly. We'll be back normally, like, filming on Saturdays. It's just this specific one is going to be a little bit different as I am going to another state. So... once I come back, I'm sure we might talk about that a little bit, but we'll also have a surprise on the next one. So we'll talk about that at the end of the podcast. But yeah, here we go.
I'm going to just turn them off. There we go. Now they'll just sit there.
Yeah, they're definitely going to. Okay, do you have anything you want to talk about today?
I want to talk about love.
Okay.
It's holiday season. I feel like love is kind of this is a time when people talk about it. You know, you see the every kiss begins with K commercials start to come on. But I guess my question for you is, have you ever been in love with anyone?
See, that's a difficult question because I don't know if it's necessarily lust or love, because there is a difference between the two. Lust being you want that individual, but only for the wanting reasons. Like it's like dessert. You're like, let me get that cheesecake. But that's all you really want it for. You don't want it for long term. Typically, lust is associated with sex. Typically, that's what you would want them for. So I can't say entirely with love, because I have a lot of different conceptions of what I believe love is, and the intimate part I don't necessarily understand. I mean, I haven't been in a relationship in a very long time, so there's a lot that I don't know on that end. Now, I know other forms of love when it comes, with family, with friends. Like, that's simple to me. And then, I mean, strangers, but that intimate part, I think, is like the battle. And then, of course, loving yourself as well, too. I think I've gotten a lot more accustomed to that, of knowing myself and understanding what it is to love yourself, which is actually taking care of yourself at its basic root. But my answer to that question would basically be, I don't really know, I guess, what love is on the intimate side.
Okay, fair enough. I don't think I've ever been in love romantically. Because I've never been in a relationship. So, I mean, I've had I guess you would call them situationships where it could have led to something, but nothing ever really happened. But other than that, no. I mean, obviously family and friends, I've felt that love, but I've never been in love romantically. So sad. Spent every Valentine's Day alone.
What I found interesting today is I actually noticed this. I guess it's the season, as you're talking about too. There were so many beautiful people today. In numerology, it did not line up at all today for that to be the case. And I thought that was interesting because it wasn't just me. Our brother also noticed this too. He was out there and he's like, yeah, it seemed like every store that we were going to, we just kept seeing beautiful people. And they were I don't know if it was just not only what they were dressed like, it was just their presence was like that. And I wonder if it's as it gets to winter, which it does not feel like here, that starts to gravitate toward people more. Because I think of almost like a bear going into hibernation. You want to be in your cave, but you want to be with your cubs. You want to, store up everything basically. And that's why I think you have a lot of babies at the fall time. And I think that's talked about a lot. And it can be interesting what people get into the relationship with, because it's is it actually the love that they're looking for, or is it just because the feelings around them are dictating that? So that's the harder thing, because love is boundless in both directions, both the very dark side of it and the very light side of it, where it's we're going to go get every kiss begins with K. We're going to go there and get you something, and that can be the higher point. But at the same time, I think you're also going to experience that other end of it. And that duality is crazy, because when you're not in a relationship, it's a lot different than what it is, because it's a lot less chaotic in that manner, because you're just dealing with yourself. You're not dealing with the chaos of yourself and somebody else at the same time, because then the wants and needs and your time gets divided instead of you having that full ability. Your sense of freedom starts to drop from what it once was, but each one has its place. Because I believe being in that intimate relationship is definitely going to be a lot better than being alone, but I think you need to understand what it's like to be alone first because you have to find out how to love yourself first. Because if you don't, I think that chaos of the relationship starts to ensue.
100%. I think I've gotten too used to being alone. Like, I've been alone all my life, and I think, like, I'm, like, in the mindset where I'm like, I know I don't need a man. And so I know that, like, my standards are, like, extremely high. I'm like, if you're not even at least meeting that, then don't even talk to me. So I don't know. I have this, like, thing, like, I believe in soulmates. I believe that, you know, everybody has a soulmate, but I also believe that not everybody ends up with their soulmate. And I have this fear that I am not going to.
Really?
Yeah.
Has that always been something that has occurred?
I think it's as, like, I've gotten older, because I feel like a lot of people, like, I'm 23, I'll be 24 next year. Like, most people at my age by now have, like, been in a relationship or are currently, like, in a relationship. And I've never had that experience. And so I'm like the older I get, like, the more that I worry that I'm like, what if nobody's out there for me? Like, what if that's it? What if I'm just alone forever?
And what's odd is, like, there's that other end of the spectrum where somebody's with so many people. So it's like, what is even going to be, what is the happiness even going to be anymore? And that's a hard thing to see too. But I think eventually you do find that person that you can rest your soul with. But finding the soulmate is very difficult. Have you heard of the concept of twin flame?
Yes, I have.
What do you know
But
about
that's different from a soulmate, though. A twin flame is like somebody that, like, you guys are, like, extremely alike, but you don't, like, end up together. Like, you're, like, you meet up at, like, points in your life, but you're not always together. Like, that's my concept of twin flame. Like, your flame is too strong, so you can't always be with each other, but you're always, like, connected.
That is basic. Off of that, basically, how I see that is I've seen that in relationships as well too, because they'll have really high peaks and then they'll have those really low lows where they want to be away from each other, and that can be very detrimental, especially if they have kids, because being away, especially like taking kids away from like the other side of the family, can, you know, shape the individual a lot differently than maybe they should have. They were going to lose a lot of that, and it takes them to be able to find out like what that other side of them is without being able to realize it. Because one side can teach you something, but you need both. Regardless if the dad's gone or regardless if the mom's gone, you're going to miss some aspect of it. And one can be the nurturer. It doesn't always have to be the mother, although typically that is what it is shown to be. But it's the same, you know, with the father when it comes to like discipline. He's not always the one to discipline too, because that's the beauty of life. It's just, it's not always going to be that way, but how it's shaped is kind of based off where you came from, and that's where you have to observe what was their love like, and always like understanding that, because it helps you understand more of yourself and maybe the potential mate that you might be able to find out there. And again, speaking in my terms, not being in a relationship. Now, have I actually tried to pursue individuals? Yes, I have tried to do that. Now, I think there's still that side of myself that has to be developed on finding that individual, because that's more important to me than going around and being with individuals every other night. Like, it just doesn't seem right. The connection is not there. Like, when you develop a relationship, I always think of a progressive development, because it's very important. Like, there's highs and lows of every relationship, and that's where each person takes their time to reflect, and then either that or they just take action. They do things together all the time. But that intimate part is an explanation that I can't really go into besides my own foresight and my own perception of what I've seen from relationships. And it comes back to the key concept of the podcast, which is communication. Whenever that starts to lack, that's when the relationship starts to go downhill. Also, when sex does not happen. Because when that stops happening, then it's like, oh, okay, I can just go to somebody else. But it also depends on their ideals. Because I think religious individuals do not fall under that category as much. Because some don't view sex in that manner. Because they view God above the relationship. And I've seen that. I mean, what I call my second family has that conception. Is, you know, we were talking about on Thanksgiving what we're thankful for. And they had stated that God comes first. And I'm just like, that perception of that is different from, say, somebody who doesn't have as much religious beliefs on stuff. They're going to have, a different conception of what that means to them. And they may be having a lot more sex than the individuals that don't. Because certain religions kind of prohibit that to a certain extent. Especially like, I know Christianity is do not have sex before marriage. And it's an interesting principle. I actually kind of agree with it to an extent, but I don't know if I entirely agree with it. I think it depends on how strong your bond is. Like I don't think you should be doing it within the first date, even second date. I think there's a lot more development that has to happen for that to occur. Like a lot more talking and a lot more experience, because I think ultimately to know an individual, you have to know that other darker side of them. And if they're always in a pleasant part, the honeymoon phase is what they call it, you're never going to have that experience with them. So when it does happen, you're going to get blindsided and you're like, who am I with? Because you don't know how to handle it at that point. You're like, all these good things happen and now this, it just doesn't seem right. I think you have to show that other side of you at some point in the relationship.
I feel like it's hard though to fully ever know somebody. Because you can put on a facade, especially if you're not living with someone. You can just kind of turn it on whenever you're around them, and then go back to being who you are. You hear about the psychopaths that would have relationships where their partner never knew of the things that they did. And I don't know. I feel like you can never fully know someone, which also brings my fear of marriage, because it's you can marry somebody and they can surprise you or shock you or do something that you're they would never do that. But people are also constantly changing, so it's not always oh, well, this person just hid who they were. It could also be they changed and you just didn't like who they changed into. But yeah, I don't know. I have a fear of marriage because of that. I'm ooh.
Well, that's also thinking very far ahead. You haven't been in the dating phase.
Yeah.
So it is one. Getting into a relationship is too. Both of you should feel anxious getting into it, because you should be questioning, why is this other person interested in me? Because if you don't have that conception of that, you're just going to be okay, cool, we're just hanging out, we're doing that. And then you eventually get to that phase, is it boyfriend, girlfriend type of deal? And then it's one of you may disagree, and then the other might be upset because it's it doesn't make sense. We've been dating for so long, you could say, or maybe so little, depending on whatever your response is. And that ends up being something that's a larger argument. But it has to happen. If you were to go in today and you're I'm gonna get married to this person, and you're talking to a marriage counselor and they're have you ever had a fight? And you say no, that is very problematic. And they will probably let you know that, because you have to have that endurance of going through those things. I think that's what I'm more focused on. Having the better times, that is simpler. And you should cherish those times when they're there, because you are going to have times where it's going to be a long drag of just, it sucks. When you lack sleep and you have a kid. And I don't know this, but having 2 hours of sleep, somebody whining, and then you having to decide who's going to get up to go do it, and you both are working tomorrow, whether one's watching the kid, whether you have a babysitter watching a kid and both of you are working, or the other one is just working and then they have to come home. The set of duties and responsibilities, that does have to be laid out at some point in the relationship. But it should not have to be day one where it's I like you. Do you do the dishes?
Why not on day one? I don't if you go on a first date and you're what's your favorite color? Do you like Frosted Flakes? I just feel those questions are so stupid. I feel you should get into the deeper questions. Oh, do you do chores at your house? You hire a maid, or do you do dishes? What's going on?
I guess that's a fair point. I guess it depends on the individual. The Frosted Flakes and color question, I think it's to break that, because you're both having that anxiety, so you don't know what to necessarily talk about. But I think with the soulmate, you would. you would just flawlessly be able to communicate with one another.
That's what people talk about. Like, people talk about, like, meeting, like, their soulmate. Like, it's like an instant connection. It's like you guys have known each other forever, and it's like you just know what to talk about. Which I hope that's true, because I feel like I am, like, even with, like, friendships, or even, like, not friendships, just around people, I'm, like, not a talkative person. Like, you have to talk to me, and you have to talk to me enough to where I'm like, okay, this person's actually interested in what I want to say.
Well,
and then my brain starts to, like, come up with questions like, okay, now I can ask them this. Because I don't know if anybody else has this problem, but my brain just goes completely blank. Like, no, not even the dumb questions pop up in my head when I'm talking to people, you know? Like, not like, what's your favorite color, you know? Like, my brain is just blank. And I'm just like, I need to say something, because I don't want them to think that I don't want to talk to them, or that, like, I don't want to be friends. But, like, my brain's like, it's like, we got nothing for you. I'm like, what you mean? Got, like, SpongeBob looking in the file cabinets, there's nothing in there.
Wait, I feel like that would be, okay, it's that one, or it's the one with Patrick where he's trying to grind the gears, but it's not actually going.
Yeah, basically, that's my brain. It just, like, completely goes blank, and I just stop acting like a human, and I'm just a robot standing there.
It's almost like a shutdown mode is kind of what happens, but it's definitely fair. And introverts typically do this, but it's because you haven't had a lot of exposure to different conversation, so you don't know necessarily what to talk about when they bring it up. But at the same time, judgment is a large part too, because if somebody says something and, like, you already, like, the way they may say it may automatically shut down your brain, where it's like, like, you want to disagree with them, but it's kind of hard to, because it's like, you're just talking to this person, you're already disagreeing with what they have to say.
I feel like mine's not about disagreement. Mine's about if I say something and they're like, oh yeah, no, I don't want to be friends with her, she's weird, you know?
Oh, but that would be judgment.
Well, yeah, but, like, not judgment in, like, we're gonna sit here and have an argument over something you said. It's more so of, like, me saying something and then being like, oh yeah, no, goodbye.
Well, that means that the person would have to create that environment for you, or you would have to switch your manner of approach on that. Because I learned this back when I worked at Costco. They said there's no such thing as a stupid question. And I've actually taken that to heart, because I always, as a child, was, like, called stupid. And, like, why did you even ask that? That's a dumb question. And having that recirculate in my mind, it's like, it doesn't help you expand. It doesn't help you be creative in thought. And when somebody asks a question like that, your reaction matters too, because you could just project that same thing back onto them and say, yeah, that's a stupid question. Or you can be like, no, that's actually pretty thoughtful. I mean, it could seem very basic to people, but here's what I think about that. And then they would add their approach, because you're giving them that environment. You're making them feel comfortable. But again, there's a darker side to that too, because that's what your psychopaths can do too. They can make you feel very comfortable with yourself, and you start exposing a lot about yourself. And that's a harder thing to be able to understand unless you've had a lot of different interactions with people, and you've had events where people are similar in those qualities. You can normally tell by their body language. And this is actually something that I did want to talk about today, was the eye contact. When you're talking with strangers, do you typically keep eye contact with them?
No.
No. What happens? Like, can you recognize what your body language is in that moment? Like, let's say that you're at a grocery store and they're like, hey, how are you doing today? That's your reaction? No. You just laugh at them? And they're like, all right, ma'am, we'll get these scanned. How many bags did you want?
I feel like I'm good, like, in that manner, where, like at a grocery store with a person, like, hey, how are you? Like, I'm good. Like, how are you? And then I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm good, you know? And then that's kind of where the conversation ends. And then they're just, you know, scanning my stuff and whatnot.
Do you come up with any thoughts, like, during that time to, like, say to them?
No, because sometimes I panic because I'm at HEB.
I hit the panic button and Life Alert shows up to pick me up off the floor.
I'm actually just just crying on the floor. I'm like, somebody call my mom.
What happened? She said hello to me.
No.
She has me on my bags. I wanted.
I didn't know how to respond. No, I just feel like sometimes when you go to HEB, there's no bagger there. And so like I panic because I'm trying to hurry and bag because I always go when it's busy because, you know, I'm off on weekends and that's when everybody needs to go to HEB to do their grocery shopping. And so for some reason, they never have any baggers there. And so I'm trying to hurry because obviously this person's like about to finish scanning stuff. And I don't want to inconvenience the person behind me because I've already been waiting in line and I want to get out of there. So I know they do too. So I'm like trying to hurry and put all the stuff in the bag. I'm not going to sit there and be like, so, you like almonds?
Okay, whoa. Why did your speed slow down? You can keep the same speed and talk to... Wait, why are you asking them about almonds? I just caught that. What?
Okay, do you have this thing? I just made a TikTok about this, but, do you have this thing where you eat almonds and like the skin of the almond will come off and it'll... Oh, wait, you don't have tonsils. You don't have this problem. But the piece of the skin will get stuck in your tonsil and you feel like there's something in your throat.
Oh, okay. So I have had this happen. You can have it without tonsils, ma'am. It can just get stuck where the tonsils used to sit. And yes, it's annoying. And then it scratches the back of your throat and then you start having dragon breath.
But you, like, it'll be in there for a week. Like, you're trying to get it out and you're like,
yeah.
Dog, why isn't it coming out? Like, you feel like you're, like, choking. You're like, like you're trying to cough to get it out and it just isn't working.
So what's the solution?
I'm pretty sure.
Slam your head against the table.
Dink.
Get a concussion. It goes away immediately.
No, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to, like, if you get something caught in your throat, you're supposed to eat bread. I guess it helps things go down.
That actually kind of makes sense. What about coal? It's this Christmas.
Ew, you imagine eating like a chunk of coal?
Dude, that would actually be great. No, I think that would be, I don't know. I know somebody probably does it. I'm pretty sure it's on My Strange Addiction. Somebody was eating cigarette ashes, so I would assume that coal is probably a part of the list. And it would be crazier is if they dressed up as Santa and did it.
They're like, I actually love coal. And then the kids are like, oh, this is a cool new thing. I want coal for Christmas.
Yeah. And then they're like, go to Kohl's, we sell it. That would actually be a
Kohl's
great brand.
cash.
Yes. That would be actually a very good shot. Kohl's, we just gave you a business idea.
Kohl's selling coals with your Kohl's cash.
Wait, why? Actually, that's a perfect idea because they can literally bring in Santa and then whoever's on the, well, I guess that would kind of upset the kids. But what if the coal contains something inside of it, like candy? Well, oh, okay, hold up. The kids grow up and then they start buying charcoal bags to open them up. They're like, is there candy up in here?
They get their little hammers. They're like opening the coal up. And then all of the coals are empty. Their dad comes in. That is for the grill, son.
No, there's candy in here, I swear.
Oh my god.
The clerk told me about it. Actually, Santa told me about it.
And that's when they send you
when
to
you
the insane asylum. That's when you get to be in the big white room.
Yes, and the kids love it because they have coal in there. It's like the same place. It's like, this is like a whole routine process. They go to Kohl's, they talk to Santa, they sit on the lap, and he tells them, if you open the coal, there's candy. And then he shows them, and then they go back home, and then they're like, Dad, can you buy coal for Christmas if you really want it? And then he buys it, and he's trying to break it open to get it. And then he sees that, sends them to the insane asylum, and the insane asylum is actually ran by the Santa that was at Kohl's. And then he's like, here's even more coal. And I feel like you would make kids go crazy doing that. You put them in that white room, and then you just keep throwing coal in there.
I have to find the candy. I have to find the candy. I know it's in one of these.
And then they just go crazy because after 5 minutes of doing that, they don't find any candy. And then they're on the floor. Ah! Yeah, and then they got to pull them out. That would not be good.
Yeah,
We
no.
would change the entire population of the United States if we did that.
I feel like that's...
Go to Kohl's now.
I feel like that's crackhead Santa.
That's me.
I was about to say it's just you dressed up as Santa.
Let's just say this plan might already be in action. Visit your local Kohl's today.
It's like a Kohl's ad.
Pops up at the top of the screen, and then it's like,
Wait, what if somebody's watching this like on YouTube and a Kohl's ad pops up in the middle of
That's
it?
actually true. Okay, this is something definitely for the audience. I know everybody has to agree on this. When you go on any social media platform, I specifically know it with Facebook, when you had talked about something that you, well, I don't know, you were buying a water dispenser, let's say, and then it's like, yeah, I'm going to be getting that, might get it next week. And then all of a sudden on the shop, it's just like a ton of things for water dispensers pop up. And you're like, why'd they know this? And it's like, maybe the phone that you were using has actually been paying attention the entire time.
It's your FBI agent.
Yeah, it's your personalized FBI agent.
Yeah.
And it may actually be your neighbor.
Sometimes I feel like, though, it's not even just things you talk about, it's things that you think about that will pop up
Okay, that is true.
on your like Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and you're like, I never said this out loud. How'd you know that? And your FBI agent's like, I can read minds.
That is actually true. Well, I think of that going into that computer thing. Like, you're always connected to that thing, and you have it by you all the time. So, like, I wonder if it just picks up that energy just because it's there. I mean, that's a crazy idea, but I still think it's quite possible, considering that you're touching your phone most of the day.
Which means that it's possible that robots can take over like they do in the movies.
Yeah. Well, that's entirely possible. It's just what we conceive of that is not even close to the destruction. Like, they would just wipe us out like instantly. There wouldn't be like a whole giant battle and stuff. It would just be like instant. Especially if we had chips in us. Like, it would just be like deactivate.
Like Lay's chips, barbecue, sour cream.
What?
You said we have chips and nuts.
Oh. Well, it depends on your flavor.
I just imagine like the computer just being like, oh, yeah, you want to throw things in the recycling bin. I'm going to recycle you now. It just drags and drops you into the garbage.
It would so be true because, like, if we went into the metaverse, it could easily do that to us. It could be like, and then it has music playing behind it too, and you like hear it faintly in the background. You're like, what's going on right now? They're taking another person. And it's like, what do you mean they're taking another person?
It's you!
And then all you see is the giant claw come over to pick you up. And then it's like, whoa, where's it taking me? And all you see is this giant bin up top. And it's like, help. And people are starting to disappear. It's like, oh my gosh, is that a personalized shredder? Is it tax day already?
Then you get put in the recycling bin. You're like, okay, I'm fine. I'm just in the recycling bin. You see the mouse come over, click, and then it says delete all. And you're like, no!
And then all of a sudden, doom, it just goes completely silent. And then everybody else, and then the sign comes back out, and everybody else is like, yay, it wasn't me today.
It's like the purge, but for computers.
That would seriously be it. Like, whoever had like the main access to the metaverse, like, that is entirely possible if you connect so much of yourself to the other thing. Now, will something of the occurrence happen? Yes. It just depends on who's in power at that time. And there's a lot of factors to that. It's like, is the world trying to turn itself and destroy itself, or is it trying to rebuild itself? Because I think about that. Like, can you recall something that has happened? I don't know, like 400
I can recall a lot of things.
400 AD.
BC?
No, 80 or BC.
Oh yeah, Sporticus was out in the Athens.
What was he doing?
He was doing those, like, you know, when you go on your hands, he was doing those push-ups.
Oh, he was doing handstand push-ups.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and then he flipped into action and it did his music. Dun, 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 dun.
Okay, this is confirmed. This is true. We don't need to look this one up. This one is true.
Yeah,
just believe us.
It's written on the stones in hieroglyphics. You just gotta look for it.
Yeah. The determination of language is actually very important as well too. Like how we have deciphered that, like from hieroglyphics and symbols. Like I don't know, like each one, like how we would see a sun, we're like, that kind of looks like that thing. So that part of language everybody can
But
understand.
how do we know if it's accurate or not? How do we, like, we're just making it up. We're like, okay, that looks like a sun. Sun, man, dog. The man and the dog went to the sun.
Oh yeah, like how did they create the words? Well, that's the thing. We can't actually have the perception of that. That's why I asked you the question like 400 BC and 400 AD, and Sporticus had written this. So if those were written on the hieroglyphs, like how would we know today? Like what happened in between? Like why did it change so dramatically? Well, everything had fallen at some point to like nothing again, it seemed like. The earth had to reconstruct. That's why I think the belief of dinosaurs is very real. Because something that is very like crazy conceptual wise is like was once a thing. Like we weren't the superhumans of the time because we weren't there. We didn't have all those perceptions. Something else did that would not be considered humans in our books, but they were at the top of the species. And that's why individuals put it as dinosaurs, because if they were the largest creatures roaming around, they had full control of access over all of the land, just not in the same way we do. Because how we construct land is not how dinosaurs construct land. They eat stuff, but then they also nest in their own areas, which is similar to us. But if you looked at like the environment, there would be more trees, there would be more bugs and other types of creatures, whereas now it's us. And I think with the transition going into AI, it's going to be a lot more computers. Like how you see drones that go around, that will be definitely a thing. Same with us being in the sky. Like, I don't know if you heard about this, but Amazon was apparently supposed to, actually, sorry, not Amazon, Uber was supposed to have flying cars by 2025 for like taxi delivery service.
No.
Yeah, and that's something that I don't believe is a thing yet. I don't think they've gotten to that case because we don't see flying cars. We do see, however, Rivians, which are the Cybertrucks. Wait, no, they're two different vehicles. Excuse me. But the Cybertrucks, we see Cybertrucks. I mean, you might not, but me and our brother have. So that is a different type of vehicle because it's like, whoa. But you don't see anything that's flying on the road.
Well, it wouldn't be on the road if it was flying.
Well, that's true. It would be hovering, but it would have to be on some path. Like, we do have drones.
Rainbow Road! wait, hold on. What if you're driving on the highway and all of a sudden you just see this rainbow appear, like, oh, a nice rainbow, and then you see a flying car, like, dang, they racing on Rainbow Road? Why didn't I
and
get
people
invited?
want to get it. I think there is one, but of course it's very expensive. It's like when Tesla came out with their first vehicle. It's like millions because the production is so hard to make. But there is a flying vehicle. Like, there actually is. It's just, again, very rare. It's going to be somebody who keeps it in their place because they don't want people touching it and all of that type of stuff. They have to have a lot of security on it until it's mass produced. Then everybody's like, okay, I won't do anything with that. But, you know, you're still going to have that occasional person that's like, this is mine. Like somebody trying to steal a Tesla. But we also up security too, so it's kind of harder to steal something of that capacity. Whereas if you wanted to like pickpocket somebody and put a grenade in their pocket, you could.
Picket pocket or pickpocket?
Pickpocket.
You just put a picket fence in their pocket.
You're like, hey man, I saw the your yard's looking a little ratchet today, so you get one of these up on there, okay?
Wait, you just have like a whole fence post and you just like stick it in their pocket?
I do not think it would fit unless it was very thin. But then you would wonder, like, why did they would have to have so many pickets at that point, like easily 500. If we're talking about like a basic size yard, like if you were to go to a normal house and somebody's gonna be like, well, how many square feet is that?
No, just one.
No, just a normal.
Just one. Just like one post. That's all they have. That's what they give them. Mm-hmm. Here's your big events. You need to build the rest.
Yeah, and they have to learn how to clone and duplicate. Do you believe this or not, that we clone stuff?
It's possible.
Do you
Maybe
think
at
we do
Area
it now?
51.
Do you think we do it now?
Probably.
Okay. It is true. It's with food. They actually clone food, which is
I
wild.
was talking about humans.
Oh, okay. I don't think we have gotten to that capacity.
Area 51.
Yeah?
There's so many things we don't know about Area 51. They already told us aliens are real and they got them over at Area 51. You think they don't have other things like cloning machines, time machines, flying machines, Sporticus and Robbie Rotten?
Well, they were back in Athens, so they would have to have them. I wonder how much actual like technology is like stored, not just in Area 51. I feel like that's the bluff, because that's the magic trick. You focus on that area, and then you look at some other area, and then it's completely something else. I mean, that's a part of the magic trick, is that like it has to be revealed. Do you remember the Four Horsemen? It's Now Can You See Me? It's a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that conception of that. How do you remember the bank scene? Basically, for the audience, they get on a giant stage, and this is in the second one. They're trying to present to individuals like their magic trick, and what they're doing is they're going to rob a bank from that specific stage. So what they did is they handed out different numbers to the contestants, and they're like basically they almost look like pong balls. That you would pull out, what was that little lottery machine where you get to spin it? And
That's bingo.
No, man. You know what I'm talking about. It's the lottery machine. It's where it has
With
all
the little balls.
Yeah, ping pong
with
balls.
The numbers.
We'll just say ping pong balls with that.
Or golf balls.
Yeah, but why is this in bingo? Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's in bingo.
You're correct.
They call it B7.
Bing. Oh my God, bingo! It's my lucky day.
I just called one number. How'd you get a bingo?
Because I'm rich.
Then you don't deserve the bingo money.
Oh, well, I shopped at Goodwill last week. Okay, you won, ma'am.
Okay, you convinced us.
But they would pull that out, and once they pulled that out, each person would have one. And what they did was they had it on like a card. They had him write it on a card, and then they put that card into that bank. And now keep in mind, they were in Vegas actually when they did this. And again, it's a movie. It was in Vegas, but they sent it to, it was some European country. And they ended up showing the camera to it, and they made like some portal to go there. And boom, once they blew all the money around, which they had like these leaf blowers that just kicked everything up. And boom, there was the card sitting at the bottom of it. And they sucked all the money in, and they let it rain on stage. Like they took all that money and showed it to be there. But that's not actually where the money went to. And that's what they were trying to find the entire time, because the police were like, what did you do with it? And they were chasing them, and they're like, we're always one step ahead. And that's the magicians. That is the larger power. Because if you want to stay in power, you have to always be the step ahead. Because we're talking about these things, but they're going to be a step ahead unless we actually understand the process of what is happening, which is putting our full attention and also being at the right place at the right time, which is very difficult to do. But you also, I think, would have to have a team to figure that out, because you against all of them, it's possible, but it's going to be a lot easier if you have a group of individuals that are seeking that out. But also there are going to be consequences for trying to find out some of that information as well too. There will be things that, could destroy you to the core. Like you're basically risking your life and anybody that you ever loved, because they will target them. And they know them already.
Oh, of course. I mean, you got Mr. FBI agent watching you constantly. Mm-hmm. They know who you are.
Well, also, when you're watching Lazy Town, Sporticus is back from 400 AD. He's going to be paying attention.
He said, I know who you are. I've been watching you.
Yeah, it's a very interesting movie. It has a lot of that aspect, but it's very applicable to like Area 51 or the Pentagon or Israel, like all these different points that are like shown. Like there's something that's happening way behind the scenes. I mean, documentaries I think do a good job with this, because I had seen one that talked about chocolate, how it was sold. They're like, yeah, it's ethically grown, like, Nestle chocolate. That's a Christmas one as well too. Those chocolates, they want to make sure that there's not child labor, but there's a whole documentary showing like a group of individuals that would go into the jungle where they actually get it from and source it from, and they would see children picking it off the trees, and then they would report it to the government, and the government wouldn't really do anything. The same concept, it happens with hacking, because people that are in call centers in India are taking money from individuals who are here through Amazon or PayPal, or basically any program that older people are going to use that are newer, that don't know too much about it and don't want anything to happen to their account. So for that to occur, And for them to see that, like, it's a whole illusion to them, and they present it that way. But if you look close enough, you can look past the scam, but you have to be smart about it. But older individuals, if they're a little bit slower with stuff, so if they don't pick up on those things, then they have a chance to lose 10,000 to millions of dollars just because of that. The same trick applies.
I mean, we used to see that, like, with me working at Walgreens, like, you'd get older people being like, oh, yeah, somebody told me, like, there was this lady that came in, and she was like, oh, I need to pay my AT&T bill, and they told me that I can pay it if I buy these Target gift cards. And we were like, what? And she was like, yeah. And we were like, no. They're like, ma'am, you're being scammed. We're like, you can go on the app, or you can call AT&T, or you can even go on a web browser and just go to your account and pay it there. They would never ask you to buy a gift card. And she was like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like, I would have just lost this money. I mean, she was only buying, I think, like a $50 gift card, but still, like, $50, like, that's gone. Plus, you still have to pay your AT&T bill. But yeah, I mean, we saw that a lot at Walgreens with people, like, buying these, being like, oh yeah, somebody told me I need to buy this. And we're like, yeah, no. We're not selling this to you.
And it's good that there are individuals who do know this as well too. Like, I had this happen at a bank actually, where somebody was offering me a job that was in Canada, and I actually looked it up, so it was a better, like, scheme. It was a real company, but I didn't pay attention to the email address enough to know that. But also, again, why would somebody offer you something so much for somebody that they don't know? Like, that should be the first red flag, and you should just cut it there. But it's the temptation of wanting to have that thing where you're like, okay. Or it's the fear tactic. They play both standards. Like, either you want money fast, which is get rich quick schemes, which is a whole pyramid scheme in itself. Like, you have scammers who actually have that concept that try to take you for money, but then there's actually people here who are like, yeah, you can sell these products and make a lot, and they motivate you and they drive you to do that, and you end up trying to do it. I was at one of these events, and the reason why I didn't fall into it, or was our brother did, was because his wasn't so much product oriented like me. I used to drink Bang energy drinks, and I was very big about them. I was like, this is the best one. But at this conference that we were going to, they had different products, and I'm like, okay, I like what they're saying. It's very motivational. Like, what can I sell? And I looked at their catalog, and I saw their energy drinks, and I was like, let me see the nutrition facts. Let me see what they got in it. Like, how is it different? It was 2 times more expensive, and it had 2 times less caffeine, and I tasted it. It tasted terrible. It was just, everything was wrong about it. I'm like, why would I sell this product? And then on top of that, if I'm selling this product, how much are they actually making out of it? I didn't think about that at the time. I was just thinking, you know, how are you going to compare to Bang Energy with this? This is terrible. So I knew after I got a night's of rest, I was like, yeah, I'm not continuing with this. Now, our brother, on the other hand, actually made that investment, which is how they get you initially. I think it's like a $250 to $500 investment into their thing, where you buy like the package and then you go like sell the products that you do have, which you're only limited to a certain amount at the beginning. A lot of it is just like what they would call the startup cost of it. But then they'll keep you in there. There's still somebody to this day that still messages anybody that went to the high school about, hey, how are you doing? We went to high school together. They start the conversation with you, and if you don't say anything, they're like, hey, I have this opportunity for you. You might have, you might be interested in it. They'll keep bugging you, because that's what salesmen do. They'll keep bugging you, and they want to relate to you. They'll do anything to relate to you, but they are not focused on that. Truly, they're not there to pay attention to you. They're there to sell that product. They're there to achieve that resource. And to tie that back into the relationship aspect and love, that's the same thing that can happen. They could just want you for your body, or your mind, or your money. Any type of resource that they deem the thing. Now, of course, you want those to also be a part of the person that you're going to be with, because you should have certain ideals with one another that you can, bond on. Like, for instance, let's say you didn't want to travel, but the other person wanted to, which I have a friend that had a situation like this. If you don't agree on that, that's a pretty big difference, because what if you want to move and live somewhere else, but they do not want to? That's where a larger decision comes. Do you continue in the relationship or do you not? And those are larger things that have to be talked about. Like, you could have been with them for a while, you could have had sex, you could even have a kid, but if that large thing comes up, it's like, well, what do you choose at that point? And that's where ideals of the individual come in. And a lot of individuals will talk about, oh, it's about being happy. I don't think so. You want to be content, but I don't think you should just be aimed to be happy. Because if you don't feel sadness, if you don't feel anger, that's not truly a relationship. Because the relationship with your family isn't always that. You're not always happy with your family because they're going to do something that is against what you believe.
But I feel like people's perception of happy sometimes isn't about them being happy. It's about making other people happy, especially in a like family dynamic. Like, you have a husband and a kid, like, you're like, oh, well, like, we're happy. Like, they say that, like, oh, well, like, they're happy and content, but maybe you're not. And then that's when you get people that stay in relationships for longer than they should, like years and years and years, like 20 plus years. And they're just like, oh, well, like, it's too hard to get out, or, oh, they're happy, so I'm fine. But it's like, I feel like you still have to do what's best for you. Even though, like, you're in a relationship with someone, like, you still have to do what's best for you. Because at the end of the day, everybody is here for themselves. Like, we're all, like, looking after ourselves. Like, there's nobody that's going to be higher than you that's making sure you're taken care of. So I feel like you have to make sure that you're happy, even if that means doing the hard thing of being like, hey, you know, it's been like, you know, 20 plus years and we have a kid, but I can't do this anymore.
I think it really depends on the individual. Personally, I can't see that happening. Now, of course, that's like me saying this today, and there's so many other things that can happen in between. But I think it's that sense of like, you're bound to change as individuals, and you have to, because you have your own missions and goals. That's where the selfishness comes in, is you want to take care of yourself. But you talked also about the selflessness as well. The balance between those two are important, and that should happen throughout the relationship. Let's say that you couldn't make that thing happen. Let's say that that person couldn't move. Well, find another way where you can still be happy within that relationship, even if you don't have that. Because it's like the kid who wants everything. If you gave them everything all the time, they do not turn out great. Because I've seen that. Because they become spoiled in a manner. Now, let's say that they weren't like a wealthy family. They're still spoiled, just in a different way. They are like, whenever I need help with something, that person's there to help. And that's genuinely like a good thing overall to have. But if you're always giving them the help, they're never going to learn the lesson. Because you're trying to teach them something different, but they're not willing to change because you've never been like, well, you're on your own with this.
I mean, they're always just basically relying on someone else over themselves. So then when they go out into the real world and they're like, oh, well, nobody's helping me. Like, why am I having to do everything? It's like, yeah, then that's how it is. Like, most people aren't going to help you. And if they do, they're not going to do everything for you. Like, you've got to put in some type of work.
I agree. It's a balance that's always something to watch for, because even in the relationship, you'll start to notice like, hey, like, you're always looking after the baby in the mornings and I'm getting very tired. Can you do this? I mean, I had a conversation about this with a couple as well too, that was talking about how one got tired of making dinner, but they had different roles. One would make breakfast, one would make dinner. Now they've swapped roles because they're like, I just don't want to do that anymore. They wanted to change it up, because when you change your character too, that's a part of change. You change your environment, you change the things that you do, and that's important. And the other person has to allow that to occur, even though like it may take away something that they want to do, but something else can come out of them that actually makes them happier. But it's harder to see that until you do it. So that conception of like, you have to look out for yourself at the end of the day, it's true. Yes, you want to be alive, but it really depends on like the situation. Like, you should look after yourself if everybody's always like using you and you don't take enough time to yourself. That's when you should. But at the other end, if you're taking all the time to yourself and nothing around you, well, that's going to suck for you, because we're social creatures. We need that type of behavior to occur, Because if we don't have that, it's not that we go necessarily insane, it's that we become in our own bubble and we become socially inept. Where, like for instance, on the duck farm that I went to, that guy has not been around people in a while. He used to go to farmers markets, but now he's just around 1,000 different ducks. That's how much he has. He has a large farm, he lets them roam. But when I talked with him, I can tell that he was an individual that had not talked with people for a while. But at the same time, like his jokes, they were very different. They were very unique. And I loved the observation of it and just being there, because in a way it was his own sense of humor, which I enjoy most out of that, because I want you to be as much as you as possible. And I think I can sense that whenever you come up with a certain type of joke or saying, because I'll be like, wow, like it was authentic. You can tell it's from the individual. And I noticed that with him. But at the same time, that lack of having that could also be a downturn for him, because you can put yourself in check to a certain point, but somebody else can also. And that's what helps build you. If you don't have that other thing, you could just be going down something that you don't understand, and you don't have all the knowledge and information. You have to learn that through others, because there's a piece of them that understands the all, just like you do too.
Yeah, I mean, I think people also like kind of have to go through their own thing as well. Like sometimes like somebody could tell you, hey, like don't do this thing, like this is bad, I've done it, don't do it. But sometimes that doesn't really register, and they have to like make the mistake to learn the lesson. Like it's not always just like, oh yeah, like these are bad, like somebody's already done them, they've realized it's bad, don't do it. Like sometimes that's not enough. It's like, oh, well, that won't happen to me, or oh, I'll be fine.
Yeah, because they put an excuse on it, and that's never good, because it's like you take that in, but then you have to analyze it. If you're just like, it is what it is, it doesn't work in that property, because you have to still pay attention to it. Because if you let it go, the unfoldment of your life could happen right there, because you weren't paying attention to it at that time. I'm not saying you need to be hyper-focused, because that just makes somebody anxious, and that also makes more mistakes happen. It's just finding what is right. Take the time to think about it, work through it, and then come to some conclusion. And that's where the individuals around you can help you with that, because they'll give you a perspective, and you're like, okay, I can agree with that. Let me think about that. And they may not be right about the scenario, but they at least gave you another perspective for you to formulate maybe something different now.
Yeah, I mean, we're not always right about everything. We don't have all the information. That's why it's always good to hear from other people. Even if you don't agree with them, like it's good to just hear somebody else's side and why they think what they think. Because I think it also helps you understand a person better. Whenever you understand, like, okay, like this is why I think what I think. And it also helps build relationships better, because then you're like, okay, like, I understand you.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to put it. And we're going to end with that. The relationship aspect and the love aspect, they're very large things, and they're very hard to understand. It's one thing that I think humans have a difficult thing doing, is expressing that to one another and how to show it. Because each person's way of receiving and giving love is going to be different. Like somebody could be yelling at you, but they're actually showing that they love you. It's it's a very twisted way of like thinking, it would seem, but you know, there's always the opposites in society. So with that being said, thank y'all for watching. I hope that, you know, you got good information out of that, because that is a very good thing that we did talk about when it came to this in the holiday season, because I'm sure a lot of individuals feel a specific type of way going into this season, whether they're depressed, whether they're really happy, or whether they're baking, or whether they're, you know, sitting in a sewer like me.
With Ratatouille himself.
Yeah, so thank y'all for watching. We have everything linked in there. We're on Spotify yet again. And yeah, Merry Christmas to y'all. And
Too early. We have another episode before Merry Christmas.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, I just want to say that. Okay, happy holidays then.
Happy holidays, that's better.
Yeah, happy holidays. And the big reveal is going to be that we will have a guest on the next one.
Yay!
Most likely. It's not completely confirmed, but yes. We should be having a guest, and we'll be having more on afterwards, as I know other listeners or the non-listeners that I just talked to outside, there's a lot of individuals that want to come on, and I know there's a lot of perspective that they can give, a lot of interesting questions, and there's going to be a different type of dynamic change I already see too, because I don't know, I like adapt with the environment a lot, so conversations just absolutely change. My dynamic changes as well too.
It's about mirroring people. If you can like mirror what somebody wants, or like, you know, their energy, then that's how you adapt to them.
Yeah, and you can both bring something better. In the concept of love, that's the same thing too. You can bring two together and go so much further. Like, you can understand so much more. So thank y'all. Happy holidays, and we'll see y'all in the next one.
Bye.
Right there by your side. Can gangsters cry?